I had today the greatest of all time, Dr. James Galvin, when it comes to neurology and brain health. Are you ready? Follow us. I want to ask you, looking ahead, what gives you the most hope in the field of brain health, cognitive health, dementia, and what do you think in the next 5 to 10 years, if you had a magic, 8 ball to see the future, where will we be 5 to 10 years from now? And I'll say something even different is, do you think, to follow up with that, do you think we'll ever be at a point, and I'm not expecting you to know that, right? Because it's nobody really knows, but do you think we'll ever be at a point where we can say reversing the disease, not slowing the progression? We had in the Alzheimer's Association, the gala. Honestly, it was incredible, like over 1,000 people. And in the center of the dance floor, because we weren't dancing, but the center of the dance floor, there was a table. It was a white table. Everything was white. And we said, these are for future survivors who survived Alzheimer's disease and were reversed. We're going to leave that table for them. And we hope that one day they're going to be sitting there. Do you think that's maybe hopeful or positive thinking, or do you think that may be a reality?
Yeah, that's a complex question.
Sorry
right?
about that.
So, I'm gonna try to answer all those parts of the question with a single statement. What makes me most hopeful, right, is that we begin to focus on brain health instead of focusing on brain disease, right? That we live a life of prevention instead of a life of reaction. That we think about Healthspan, life lived well, instead of lifespan, which is life lived long, right? So I think that Benjamin Franklin had it right, 200 or almost 300 years now, right? Is that the goal is going to be to stop people from ever developing the disease, right? And so all the research is really pushing the envelope all the way over, to the left, right? And so the idea is that we're now doing studies, these are research studies, of people who do not have symptoms but have amyloid in their brain, removing the amyloid from their brain and trying to prevent them from ever developing the disease. The hard part of what you're saying, in terms of reversing the disease, is by the time someone actually has symptoms, there's already a lot of damage done to the brain. So unless I'm somewhat tongue-in-cheek as I say this, but unless we're in Star Trek where Dr. McCoy can give a pill and you can grow a new kidney, right? Is you can't replace the brain cells that are lost, right? So while we'll always take excellent care of people who are living with disease, what gives me the most hope is that the research is taking us down the path where we can prevent people from ever developing the disease. And if I had a choice of treating the disease or not developing the disease, I would choose not developing the disease.
That is such an awesome answer, and that's why you're the GOAT. That is really a really right structured answer. That's incredible. Let me ask you something. There are some folks listening in the audience, and we have different viewers, and they're thinking about their careers. They're thinking about their lives. You're living something of a career that shows that hard work and perseverance really pays off. But if you were going to look back, at Jimmy 30, 40 years ago, right? The younger Jimmy, you're still young, but a little younger version. And for folks listening, what words of advice would you give yourself that you feel others listening? It doesn't have to be in the dementia space. It could be just in the life lessons, advice of a successful individual in this field. What words of advice would you give yourself?
Well, I wonder sometimes if my 5-year-old self who wanted to be a cowboy really had the right idea. But, I think that if I could go back, I would say that all those things I talked about that build a better brain, I would have liked to start to do those things in my teens and 20s instead of waiting until my 60s to start doing those. So we haven't known each other that long, but I've changed my lifestyle quite a bit. So I've lost 85 pounds, right? I put on almost 10 pounds of muscle. I exercise every day. I meditate. I eat right. I now sleep 8 hours a day. I never used to sleep. Sleep was optional.
Right.
So if I could go back to my 20-year-old self, I would, shake him, grab him by the collar and shake him and just say, these are the things you need to do. And, and you'll be a lot healthier. You'll be a lot happier. And you'll be able to do all the things you want to do. I want to, I now listen to my own medical advice. And I think that if I could go back, I would, change some of those things now. I think I'm really happy with the decisions I made in terms of my career. I love what I do. I love, talking to people. I love doing research. I love taking care of people with memory problems. My grandmother is going to turn 105
Wow.
in the
105.
later this month.
God bless her.
Yeah, and her memory. She lives in a long-term care facility, and her memory's not perfect, but you cannot beat her playing gin rummy.
Really?
She will still beat anybody, right?
Wow.
And she wins. I've never seen someone win at bingo so much. She wins all the time. I know it should be, it's luck. It's not skill, but all the ladies at the place where she lives, they just know that Nancy is going to win at bingo, right? And so they get these little tokens, and they can buy stuff, right, with these tokens. And she has piles and piles of these tokens because she wins frequently. So, I think, as I said, I would rather have my life lived well than my life lived long. And I think that if I could give my 20-year-old self some advice, I would give him that advice to how he could start these things then instead of waiting as long as I did.
That is beautiful advice. Beautiful advice. And I'm sure the audience listening is thinking about that and saying, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be on Instagram at 1 a.m. or, working till 2 a.m. and waking up at 5 a.m. because sooner or later that may have and likely will have impact on my cognitive abilities in the future. So really awesome advice. I started working out also just this week. I said, I have an accountability buddy, and I told him I'm going to do 3 times a week. I'm going to work out. And it's important to have an accountability buddy because otherwise you'll just cheat. So thank you for today. Honestly, I'm left inspired. I'm left hopeful. And I'm very, very thankful that I have an opportunity to speak with you and that the audience, people, have an opportunity to listen to this advice because I'm confident by listening to this guidance and education, we are touching and changing lives. I'll give you a quick example and we'll end. I was at a restaurant, Cafe Noir, with my wife, my little kid, Effie. I have 6 kiddos, but Effie's like, Dad, can I come with you? I said, okay, you can come, Effie. And another family who's traveling from California, Greg, and his family. I'm walking out the restaurant, and a gentleman gets up. He said, are you Dr. Erik? I said, yeah. He said, thank you so much for those videos that you put out on caregiving. If mom doesn't want to take a shower, if mom doesn't want to take her meds, what should I do? I was in that place between delirium and dementia, and I didn't know what the difference was. And I watched that video. We thought about the UTI. We thought about the sodium that you've mentioned. I really want to thank you and shake your hand. I said, wow, I don't know this individual, but I was able to, with God's help, have an impact on his life. And I'm more than confident that 100,000x today's message from Dr. Galvin will have that type of impact on our community. Thank you very, very, very much, Dr. Galvin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Now, if you got value from this video, I want you to imagine a world where caring for your loved one with dementia doesn't mean doing it alone. Imagine a world where you can have someone to help you at home taking care of your loved one. And imagine a world where you have 24/7 access to support when you need it. Well, I got good news for you. You don't have to imagine it anymore. This is now a reality, and it is now covered by Medicare. If you're interested in learning more, very, very simple. I want you to look up over here. We have our link to our website. Visit our website, scan our QR code, look in the description for the link as well, and Don't imagine anymore. This is now a reality.